Our next event, communication analysis. Usually when people hear that, they're like, oh, that's the one event I don't want to have to explain. It's so complicated. No, it's not. I love this event. Communication analysis. How many have ever taken an English lit class? Okay, have to analyze some poem that you didn't understand in that? Okay. You've done this event. You've done this event. You are taking an artifact. Now, what is an artifact? Any example of communication, be it a speech, a poster, an ad campaign. I mean, things that I said, Francesca spoke earlier, did hers on Jerry Springer, the opera, one year. Okay? And then there was like 17,000 people who did it on the Dove campaign for Real Beauty when that started. It can be virtually anything. But you're analyzing it to see what works, what doesn't work, how does it achieve or not achieve what it attempts to do. The difference is, in communication analysis or rhetorical criticism, you are using some sort of theoretical framework to help you explain to the audience your analysis, why it works or doesn't work. And there are literally thousands of them out there that will assist you in doing it. The analogy that I like to use is that of a camera. I love to do photography. I have a lot of different kinds of lenses. I know if I shoot a person with a wide-angle lens, it's going to make them look fat. I probably don't want to do that, unless I don't like them. I'm going to choose the appropriate lens for a portrait sitting, which for me would be, a medium-length lens. The idea is you choose the appropriate critical methodology to help you explain your analysis. The speaker we're about to watch, Jeremy Carson from Long Beach, will once again be an excellent example of this. At AFA last year, he took second in this event. And I've had the distinct pleasure over the years of getting to judge Jeremy in a wide variety of events. And I could say honestly that every time I've seen him, I'd love to tease him, but I'm not going to do that now. He's been excellent every time I've seen him, whether it be in Turf, whether it be platform. He's an excellent speaker, and you're in for a real treat in what, in my mind, is in many ways the most academic of all of the platform events that we do. Without further ado, Jeremy Carson.
In 1862, Alexander Gardner shocked the world by taking the first ever photos in the aftermath of the American Civil War, giving civilians the first unadulterated look at the casualties of battle. Today, with the current war in Iraq, we can access war footage from a number of private sources. Specifically, nowthat'sfuckedup.com. We can find incredibly graphic images, such as this. September 28, 2005, London Guardian explains that beginning in November of 2004, Florida resident Chris Wilson began allowing American soldiers in Iraq to post personal, non-mainstream photos of their Iraqi victims in exchange for access to amateur pornography. Now, in order to comply with internet law, the pornography section is password protected. However, photos like this are available to everyone and anyone, free of charge. According to the December 12, 2005 Columbian Chronicle, Chris Wilson has been arrested on 300 counts of indecency charges, but against his display of amateur porn, not photos like that. Now I warn you, because throughout the speech I'm going to be showing you more of these pictures. However, mainstream media has already decided whether or not we should see horrific war scenes, so we need to ask the question, how does the context in which these images are being presented alter our perceptions of the Iraqi people? To answer this, we'll turn to Walter Werner's article, What Does This Picture Say?, published in the 2004 Spring-Summer edition of the International Journal of Social Education. This model is appropriate because it discusses intertextuality, or how the context of images conveys a specific meaning. So first, we'll examine Werner's model. Then, apply it to nowthat'sfuckedup.com, and finally, discuss the resulting implications. According to Werner, intertextuality of images can be conveyed through three specific methods: juxtaposing, linking, and framing. First, when two different elements are placed next to each other or juxtaposed within a single or multiple images, their traditional meanings begin to change. The preconceived notions we have about them are challenged, and through the relationship conveyed between the two contrasting elements, a new meaning is defined. Second, through the method of linking, these ideas are communicated in two ways: clustering and scattering. Through clustering, images in a specific group or region come together to either emphasize a certain idea or contrast each other with differing themes. The more images there are in a group, the stronger this idea is either challenged or supported. Now, the same concept is used in scattering. However, that applies to all the images within a book, a room, or in our case, a website. Finally, we can view intertextuality between the image and the text surrounding it through the method of framing. This usually occurs when a photographer includes their own caption about a photo, or even when someone else writes their own comments around an image. But for example, we're all familiar with the World War II propaganda poster depicting a patriotic white-haired man pointing at us saying, "Uncle Sam wants you." Well, this caption carries a certain intentional connotation with that image. But if someone were to write the words, "to die," underneath the poster, then the connotation changes. We can analyze now that'sfuckedup.com through all three of these methods. First, on this website, last updated yesterday, we see soldiers standing at ease, relaxing, drinking water on a hot Iraqi day in front of a fresh kill. Through this juxtaposition of life and death, the traditional meanings begin to change. Life, embodied by the soldiers, takes on the new meaning of being the hunter or the victor. The Iraqi, symbol for death, is now defined as being the hunted, or the thing to be destroyed. Yet, after it's conquered, it's apparently of no more interest to us. These concepts are emphasized by clustering together over 300 of these violent photos on this website. However, through Warner's method of scattering, we need to analyze the fact that these photos are found on a website where the large majority of the content is pornography. By linking hundreds of photos of dead Iraqis to thousands of photos of naked women, the concepts of death and violence are eroticized through their direct association with sex. These photos are presented on an online forum where over 160,000 members can post their images along with a message to accompany it, which brings us to Warner's method of framing. These captions range from the relatively harmless "suicide bomber in Iraq" to the more violent and racist "die Haji die." And this is what every Iraqi should look like. The damage extends to the ability of both members and non-members to post their own comments below the image, such as "sweet," "suck shit, Abdullah," and "I feel sorry for this guy." "Oh, not the dead one. The one who has to clean him up." Connotations of violence and racism glorified throughout these images and comments are obvious. They carry with them social and rhetorical implications we can't ignore. While many of the impacts may seem clear to us at first, only by analyzing the use of juxtaposing, linking, and framing this website can we truly answer our research question. How does the context in which these images are being presented alter our perceptions of the Iraqi people? First, by defining the juxtaposed symbols of soldiers in this war as either hunters or animals, both members and non-members blatantly dehumanize the Iraqi people through obviously posed photographs. Furthermore, by directly linking these images to access to pornography, their deaths are eroticized and degraded to the point of being a currency. And through the comments framing these images, both members and non-members essentially shout their approval. By doing this, we're undermining the very motivations we had for going to war in the first place, and instead of spreading the ideals of respect and freedom, we're left just as barbaric as the supposed evildoers we're at war with. And not only that, but using photos of dead soldiers as either propaganda or entertainment is strictly forbidden by the Geneva Convention. Now, it's understandable that a soldier in war will eventually get used to being around so much carnage. But by presenting an abundance of these gruesome, glorified war images, this eroticism and desensitization to violence and death is spilling over into the civilian population. Some of you may think it's hard to see these photos once, but many of them have been viewed over 250,000 times. And these aren't even the worst ones you can find on the website. Actually, in order to research the speech, I had to visit every single page of nowthat'sfuckedup.com, and after a while, seeing another photo of a blown-up head, dismembered limb, or mutilated intestines of an Iraqi soldier no longer bothered me. And that bothers me. Finally, on a rhetorical level, after analyzing this website, we can become aware of the subliminal concepts conveyed by visual imagery. While many of the impacts may seem obvious, under further investigation, we can understand that ideas are being presented below the surface level in a way that forces us to accept them without consciously questioning them. Therefore, since these ideas are not being specifically spelled out for us using language, we need to realize that visual imagery can be as or more powerful than traditional forms of rhetoric. We're all familiar with the cliche phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, that's the case. By examining Warner's model on intertextuality, applying it to that'sfuckedup.com, finally discussing the resulting implications, hopefully we can understand how the context in which these images are being presented can alter our perceptions of the Iraqi people. The December 12, 2005 Washington Internet Times reports that Chris Wilson's in custody, crying free speech, reminding us that back in the days of the American Civil War, when no one had actually seen the devastation of battle without being there, photography opened the eyes of the civilian population to the cost of war. But today, sources like this website abuse the power of visual imagery. The meaning's lost, truth gets distorted, we aren't shocked by carnage anymore. Now that is fucked up.
Easy to see why the speech did so well. A couple things I want to point out. CA or rhetoric is different than a lot of the others. Instead of a typical thesis statement, most of them will begin with a rhetorical question or a research question. Why is that? Well, the focus of this speech is analysis rather than telling. So we begin any research with something that we want to find out, and he outlines that very clearly in the beginning. He then explains the methodology or lens, as we talked about, does it briefly, just enough to give us a sense of what the theory says, and then he begins to analyze the artifact, or in this case, several representative examples of the artifact, which is the website. Okay? And as he implies later, very carefully chosen examples from the website, where I imagine that there could be even much worse things there. And then finally, he spent some time answering this question, saying, okay, now that we've analyzed this, how much have we learned about our initial research question? What do we now know that we did not know before? It really is an academic investigation. Sourcing. You will notice far fewer sources in this speech than in some of the others. Why? This one is being evaluated largely on what is your analysis. What did your research, your discovery teach you, and therefore us, about this? Using sources where appropriate to support the claims that you're making. Okay? He does an excellent job of that. And once again, delivery, I want to contrast Daniel and Jeremy in delivery. Very different styles of speeches, very different topics, and therefore very different styles of delivery. Daniel can be up here having fun. If Jeremy were to do that, it would come across as very disrespectful and distasteful. Delivery should match what you're saying. Verbal, nonverbal congruence kind of an idea. And that would be true in informative or persuasive, and a variety of different things as well within a speech. Those are my comments. Excellent job. Questions? Right here.
What prompted you to do such a rapid speech?
There's two answers to that. First one is that I felt it was really important. It was brought to the attention, or to my attention, by one of our coaches, assistant director of the team, Bill Neeson. He let me know about this, and he said, "Hey, I think this would be a really good thing to talk about." And I looked up all of the information about it. Actually, all of the sources I could possibly find were in my speech, because it's not a very widespread thing, and I really wanted people to know about it. And the second answer to that would be, I knew it would do well because it is so shocking. A lot of it was based upon the shock value of the speech itself. And that's something, when you're looking for topics to do, you think of how successful will this topic be, and shock value is a big plus.
One of the other things that I think contributes to it is we don't examine visual rhetoric as much as we probably should, because we're inundated with it. Another, if I could add to that, if we stay away from topics like this, then we'll never understand what the appeal is for people out there. To leave it undercover, I think, does an injustice as well. And so that's something important. I'll climb off my soapbox now. Okay, up here first. Right? Stripes.
In regards to what you just said about the speech, it wouldn't have been all those humorous. Do you feel that there are some topics that could not or even should not have any humor in it whatsoever?
This one shouldn't. We're in this event, CA or Vet Crit, you get such a wide range of topics. It's actually probably one of the hardest to write and figure out because it's so academic. But at the same time, it is the most educational for me because I would sit in rounds and you have 5 other people in your rounds with you and you learn about so many different things going on in society. And it's so many different ways to analyze those different things. So I know one person that I consistently saw in final rounds, he goes to Morehouse College in Atlanta. His name's Kashif Pala. He was very successful. He had a speech, and there was points in it, in his model where he was explaining how to analyze it, that he talked about symbols, and he had something about like the symbol this for Atlanta, and he would throw up little jokes when he was doing stuff like that, and he did a stamp that had, it was a Mexican stamp that had a black character on that. It was a black cartoon character. It was kind of offensive, but it led more to jokes. I couldn't really do jokes in this one. He could in that one. So you'll get a variety of topics that you have to just decide.
It's topic by topic, not event by event. Informative can be very funny. Persuasive can be funny. ABS sure as hell better be funny. And CA, it depends on your artifact. I picked up Jerry Springer the Opera. If you're analyzing a song called Chick with a Dick, kind of hard to take that seriously. I mean, it's really topic driven. Okay? Other questions?
Did you counter your shock art with that analysis? Is that there to keep people thinking? Or?
The analysis is the speech. So I guess you could say that balances it out. The event name is Communication Analysis for Rhetorical Criticism. So analysis is the essential part of the speech. The photos actually there, I had a couple that were a lot more maybe offensive, maybe just graphic. There was a guy's face that was cut off floating in a bucket of blood, and I would have judges say, that one might be a little bit too much. So the offensiveness of the photos and the graphicness of the photos, I guess, does balance out with the analysis. The biggest problem with me is when I started doing the speech, I got very angry as I would deliver it throughout the entire time. And the first term I went to, my judges were saying, you're really, really angry. This is supposed to be an objective event. They can present the information, analyze it, and let everybody else decide. So that was a big hurdle that you have to get over.
Although you still allow your political view to become very clear throughout the speech, starting in the very introductory comments. Okay. Shock value for shock value's sake, not good. Analyzing something that's shocking, completely appropriate. If it looks like you're doing it just to glorify the shock value, it's not going to do well. People are going to see right through that.
And some people thought I did that, and they didn't like it.
So when you say, when you said earlier, that you're trying to analyze what we know, is it what we know based on what we have discussed, or what we know based on what we understand about the subject prior?
I understand what we discovered through his analysis. That's what that reference was for. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. Larry.
I was wondering, Jeremy, did anyone critique the sort of personal response to your first subpoint and your third point? Like your opinions or your persuasive nature of your first subpoint, was that ever critiqued?
All the time, but I found it almost impossible to analyze this artifact without getting personal.
Exactly.
So I think when it got down to it, people realized that, and a few people that didn't, I just had to take a chance, I guess.
Right. I was just, that was the question in my head, and so.
All right, last question.
The comments that you mentioned, I noticed, that were on the website, and yours were all negative. Curiosity, one, were there positive things saying, like, I do feel sorry for this guy, and did you specifically choose not to include those?
There were, like I said, about 300 of these photos, and each one of the photos probably had about 30 to 40 posts on it. And I looked through them. Out of that, I'd say maybe like 0.5% of them were in any way supportive. This is the thing, they did not find that those were negative comments at all. That's what I think a lot of the speech is talking about. They thought, in their opinion, this was good. They were trying to say this gives a more objective view of the war, et cetera, and if you want to think they're negative, and of course I portray them as being negative, then that's up to you, but it was just comments. So the only things that were supportive, saying this is not cool, whatever, were saying that we should have respect for the soldiers, and they were talking about the U.S. soldiers because there was one of a U.S. soldier that got shot. But they didn't say anything good about the Iraqi soldiers. You just got to figure who's going to be going to the website.
If I can extend on that, one thing to be very careful of in this event is the temptation to do what I would call cherry picking. Only talk about the things about your artifact that support what you want to say, or support what the method will, or what the method will allow you to say. You've got to be very careful to give a representative analysis of your artifact. Certainly, Jeremy allows himself at the end to give his personal opinion, but it's fair for him to do that in the sense that he has given an objective viewpoint for the first 7.5 minutes of the speech. And that becomes very critical to do in this event, or if you move on in your academic career, anytime you're writing criticism of an artifact, be it literary, rhetorical, whatever the case may be. Okay? Once again, thank you, Jeremy.